Alright, so in this tutorial I'm going to be taking you step by step on how I light a room, the gear I use, how I pop flashes, where I pop flashes, everything. So if you take a look at my setup right here, we are on the Olympus EM1 Mark II with that 9 to 18 millimeter lens. We got a circular polarizer filter on there. So if you're not familiar, Micro Four Thirds is a 2x crop if you want to compare it to full frame. So a 9 millimeter, which I am set to on this lens, is going to act like an 18 millimeter on a full frame. We have that Godox X1T trigger. On top of that, we have the Godox V1. On other tutorials, I show that I do run with a flash bracket. I'm going back to this method, and this is actually the first time I'm going to use my phone to be walking around taking my flash pops, because the Olympus has a nice app. You're able to do all your camera settings, you're able to adjust your f-stop, your shutter speed right from the phone. I'm still gonna have to turn the trigger on, but that's now the only time I'm gonna have to touch my camera. So I recommend getting a camera that has a really good app. Again, I'm still in testing mode. I'm trying to show you guys different options on how to do things, but let's run through this scenario. I don't know if you can see, here is the first image. I'm going to put it up on the screen as I take these images, but you're also going to be able to just walk around with me right now and just see where I take my flash pops. So I'm going to take my first image. Right now I have it set to plus 1.3, and now I'm going to show you right here, if you can see my screen right here in this section, I'm turning my circular polarizer to try to eliminate that glare as much as possible. And then we'll be able to really control it with our flash. So let's do that. Let's take our first ambient shot, and we can review it by hitting the play button. And I'll bring that up on the screen. And I can also zoom in and move around and take a look, making sure that we're nice and evenly lit as far as ambient layers go. And now we'll just go back to the camera mode. So now I got my flashes, they're always turned on. And so the only other thing I have to do is turn on the flash trigger, just like that. But before we do that, we have to make sure that we adjust our shutter speed, because we lose live view. So I'm dialing that shutter down. And again, it's pretty dark in here, just because it's early in the morning and it's pretty overcast. I'm bringing it to 1/8 already. I'm going to take my first shot here. Okay, that's what our image looks like without flash, so we're definitely going to have to do multiple flash pops. But again, this is why you're going to see how nice and even this is going to light when we run with the flash on top of the camera as well. So what I like to do is to do one flash without the other flash on. We're just going to do a test with the flash on top of the camera. Let's take a shot. Okay, so that's lighting the foreground up pretty nicely. I think we do need to bump that. Actually, yeah, we are just going to bump that flash up to half power. Let's take one more flash shot here to see. And again, once you get this established, it goes pretty quick, the rest of the images. Okay, so I like that. We can definitely bring the exposure up in post. So now we got to light that room to the right of the TV, and then the kitchen here to the left of the TV. We're going to do multiple flash pops, boom, boom, there to evenly light it. And same with here to blend that nicely. So let's do that now. So we're just going to walk over here, and you're going to be able to see. This is why I like this. Let me turn my Godox trigger on. We're going to bring that to, let's see, let's try a 1/4 power. And this is why I'm starting to stream from my phone, because we can take our flash pop and then just review it without running back to the camera. And I'm hoping you're going to be able to see this. Yeah, so that lit that section really nicely. We just got to move over here and do another flash pop to get underneath this room right here. Let's play that and see what that looks like. Wonderful. We're going to be able to blend those two images very nicely. And now we're just left to the kitchen. So we go back here, and I like this because you can see. Let's take a shot here. Review that. Wonderful. So now we just have to eliminate the hotspot by moving to the other side. Right here looks good. Let's do another flash pop, and we are firing. And take a look at that before we move on. All right, so we're going to be able to blend those two images nicely for the kitchen. And then we have that. So this is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 image composite, but it'll go quick in Lightroom and Photoshop. So let me take you in there right now and let's blend these images together. All right, so now that we got our images loaded into Lightroom, I'm going to take you into Lightroom and Photoshop and show you how simple it is to blend all these images together to get a nice professional looking image. Let's go. All right, so here is our first ambient shot. If you remember on scene, I did a second ambient shot to adjust the circular polarizer to fix this glare right here, and that is this image. And again, it won't pull that glare completely out, but you don't want it to go completely out, because this is why I love using a circular polarizer filter, is because if we need to use parts of the ambient layer, we're able to. Now, if you don't have a circular polarizer filter right now, link in the description to the ones I recommend. I've done a ton of research on which ones are really good. If you get a cheap one, they're going to vignette like crazy, and they're just going to reduce the quality of your image, so they're not going to allow your image to be sharp enough. It could actually soften it no matter what you do in camera or in post. So these Hoya filters that I got, and again, it's going to depend on the size, but I think it's only like 23 bucks. So I buy 2 of them just in case you scratch one up, throwing it into your case or whatever. You always have a spare. So make note of that. All the gear that I use and everything is going to be in my affiliate, Amazon affiliate links down there. Use those to just snoop it out, read reviews, whatever you got to do. But I only use the best, and because this is my profession, so I'm not going to tell you that I'm not using something just to try to make money off you. I'm not like that. So here is the original ambient layer, and here is the ambient layer with that circular polarizer turn to pull the glare off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my Ollie initial bump. That's the lens I use. And we maybe want to drop the blacks a little bit. I don't think I'm going to mess with the white balance on this particular image. Now, one thing I did do that's different than I normally do is I just set my white balance to 4800 on the camera. And again, if you get your white balance wrong, it's okay, because remember, we're shooting raw. But that allows me to, and I'm just going to go to as shot. So when I'm blending in, again, these are these Christmas lights that were on here. I'm just going to, I actually left them on to prove that you can overpower tungsten lighting with your flash, because remember, we did the 2 flash pops over here, 2 flash pops over here. So let's show what the image looks like again without any flash. So we really are controlling the light. At this moment, our flash layers are going to be the dominant light source, and then we can blend that ambient back in where we need to. So let's see, this is our first flash shot, and I thought maybe it needed to be a little brighter for the this is the flash going off on top of the camera, and so we bump that up again. We're not going to need these images. I'm just showing you. And what I'm going to do too is let's go back to our ambient layer. Before you move on, if you ever do any test layers or any layers that you just needed junk, I don't recommend deleting them in your camera, because you could screw up and delete an image that you need. For this sake, I'm just going to push 1 on my keyboard, and that puts a little star down there, so I know that's the ambient layer that I want. And then let's go over to our first flash composite right here. Let's do our initial bump on this one. Bring that exposure up. And we're going to bring those blacks down for the contrast. Now what I like to do is, if I have to tweak my custom preset right here, I'm just going to simply click copy and then copy. And that way, and again, I'm marking it with 1. Let's move to our other side. And then I'm just going to paste those settings in right there. And hit 1 again to flag it. Let's go over to our kitchen composite now. Let's paste those settings in. That looks good. Let's hit 1 to flag it. And paste those settings in, 1 to flag it. Now I have this one highlighted. I'm going to hold Command and then click on each one of these starred images like that. That's 5 images. Right click, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Alright, so once all your layers have been loaded into Photoshop, you're going to have that ambient layer sitting on top, because that's the one that we took first. So a super simple way to do these composites like this is that we're just going to turn that ambient layer off for now and just not worry about it. We'll turn it back on to blend it in once we got all these blended together. So the next image below is this one that we're viewing right now, with my left side composite mixed with my right side over here. So it's these 2 images. So we're going to come down here to the layer mask, Command I to invert it, and we're going to come over here to our gradient tool, and we don't need to do much gradient on this one because we actually are out of the scene, but I'm just going to start from here and just pull like that. and that just eliminates a lot of that flash on the ceiling like that. But again, we're going to be able to use the, and we can just try that again to see if we can blend it better. That did. We're going to be able to use the ambient layer. Let's turn it back on just to look. Yeah, we'll be able to use the ambient layer to blend that back in. Now notice I'm leaving it on normal mode, and I'm doing that on purpose, and I'll show you why in a little bit. So now that we have these two images blended together, you know what the easiest way to do is just to get them into one image so we can just move on to the next, is just Command and then click on the bottom one, right click, and then we're going to come down here to merge layers, and that's going to merge those two. So now we can shut that one off and work on these two. Same thing. That's all we're going to do is do a layer mask, Command I to invert, and then take our gradient tool and then just do a little bit of a blend right there. Let's try that again. There we go. And again, because we have this hot spot on there, we're going to be able to use the ambient layer to blend that back in. This is partially why I like to go with the lights off method, is because and we're going to run into the issues here with these tungsten lights causing color cast on the ceiling over here, but that's okay, because in reality you are going to have that tungsten lighting causing color casts. Alright, so now we can turn this layer back on. Oh wait, before we do that, we are going to highlight this one and do the same thing, merge layers. So now we're working with our 3 layers right here. So now we can run with these two as a composite, making them into one image. So let's do that. Let's do layer mask, Command I to invert, and now we can take our brush tool. I'm doing my right bracket to make that bigger, and we can just paint back in that flash layer underneath to relight this area. And this is why I love running with a light or a flash on top of the camera, is because we can blend in and we can overlap into the foreground here because it's already lit with our flash shot. So now we have a perfectly, well, not perfect, we got to fix the flash on the ceiling hotspots, but we have a nicely evenly blended flash layer. Now what we can do is start to turn on the ambient layer, and for this particular situation, let's try the 50% blend, which I'm just dropping the ambient layer to 50% opacity right here, and it doesn't do the trick. So we're going to have to bring that opacity back up to 100% and do a layer mask, Command I to invert, and now we can start. And now I like to have my flow at 5%, so it's just subtle changes. You can just slowly brush in that ambient where we need it. And let's get rid of that hot spot on the ceiling, get rid of those shadows. Maybe some natural light here where the flash was too hot against the wall right here. Maybe bring in some natural glare. See how we can just nicely, slowly bring in that natural glare on the floor. And maybe some ambient light up by the stairwell right here. Now, if this stairwell was dark with ambient light, I would have ran up the stairs and did a flash pop on that. But there we go. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to fix this glare on the TV. I'm going to show you an easy way to do that to make it look natural. Okay, so we're going to come down here, make sure your ambient layer is selected here, and we're going to click on this plus sign with a box around it. That's going to create a layer. We're going to come over to our pen tool. I'm going to Command plus to zoom in. Scroll up so I can see the TV, and we're just going to click on all 4 corners of the TV right here. Once you make a complete selection, we're going to right click and then fill path. And then by default, it is going to be on black, is going to be selected. So normally you just have to hit OK, like that. Now right click again and go back down, or go up to delete path. That'll get rid of that. And now we can, let's zoom out, Command minus sign. That obviously looks fake. All you got to do is drop the opacity, usually 70-75%. Still gives you some natural reflection, but it definitely takes the majority of the glare out of that TV. Now we can go ahead and completely flatten this image. And now here's another trick that I like to do. Instead of using luminosity mode, I like to Command J to duplicate the layer, come up here to filter, blur, and then average. And this is going to smear all the colors together to give you an average color, which If you have a perfect white balance, a perfectly balanced image with your RGB channels, it will be a neutral gray color. So how we have to correct that to do our adjustments is we're going to come down here and we're going to choose a curves adjustment layer. And I've shown this in every tutorial pretty much, but we're going to choose the middle eyedropper, click on anywhere in the image, and it's going to shift it. So I'm going to zoom in. You can see what it did is it lifted the blues on that curve and dropped the reds. And so if we toggle that off, toggle the middle layer 1 off, and if we toggle this on and off, you can see that it got rid of that yellowish orangish cast that these floors and this light were creating. But again, it isn't always a perfect solution. I like to take and maybe drop that down to 50% or so. And so if you toggle that on and off, it still definitely corrected it. And it just does such a better job than luminosity mode, in my opinion. Luminosity mode is good for certain situations. A lot of times you're ending up doing with wood in the scene, and if you have harsh shadows, you're going to end up having to do repair layers anyway, so it's like it just adds a step. So I found that just using normal mode and then using this method works a lot better for me. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to flatten this image. I'm going to say yes because we don't need that other layer that we duplicated. Command S to save this. And we're going to bring this back into Lightroom. Alright, so once it's back into Lightroom, we're just going to hit it with our interior final bump like that. Maybe bring up those shadows, maybe adjust the blacks a little bit. But there you go. Make sure you watch this video. This is another video on how I demonstrate different lighting situations using umbrellas and everything. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We got tutorials coming out all the time. Again, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye-bye.